Hello. I'm going to start by giving a quick rundown of what my life has been like on paper. I'm the child of a doctor and a teacher, actually an only child. I grew up in a nice Midwestern suburb. It's not like we were loaded or anything, but I recognize that it was a very privileged upbringing in a lot of ways. So I've been able to read for as long as I can remember. There's home videos of me as a toddler typing letters and numbers in on a keyboard, knowing what they were. I think I was like 2 or 3, maybe some of those were when I was 2. I bounced around different preschools and just did not fit in. So, in addition to my learning abilities being different, I also had significant anger issues. Spoiler, I will touch on these a little bit. They were a big part of my childhood, while not being necessarily directly related to the gifted experience. So they will come up some, but luckily now I have everything there in that department managed. So after the tumultuous preschool time, I started public school and kindergarten in this nice suburban school district. So things were normal for about a year and a half, and then in the middle of first grade, I took a test, and based on that and other things, skipped ahead to second grade. So fun fact, I never finished first grade. And then after that, I lasted about 2 more years in the public school system. I was racking up some suspensions due to my anger issues, but also the learning environment was just not a good fit for me. The types of problems I was doing and the things I knew how to do were not matching the kids at my grade level. So with all that, my parents pulled me out of the school district. So I was homeschooled for most of the way in after that, bouncing around some different online curriculums. Math was my strong suit. I remember taking an algebra class when I was 9 online and did math counts, which was a big math competition. And I think I was like top 15 in my state in 7th grade without really much specific preparation for it. And then in 8th grade, I prepared a little bit more and finished 7th or 8th, I believe. So at 13, I started going to the local community college for dual enrollment classes to start getting college credit. So that's what I did for much of high school, although I did actually enroll in the local high school again my senior year to try to get a taste of that experience. I only had like a couple classes left that I could take at the high school at that point, but I still did that and enjoyed that until March of 2020 when COVID hit and shut everything down. But anyway, around age 15, I started getting a little bit burnt out. To that point, I've been like very high achieving, was getting like A's and everything, like everything top of the line. And then I got lazy. I started racking up the occasional B's and was really just coasting it in for a lot of high school. And that kind of influenced my decision on where I went to college. So I ended up getting a high enough score on the PSAT, which you take junior year of high school, which for me was at age 15, to get a National Merit Scholarship, which that gave me a full ride to a top 50 public school. So my parents, they would have helped me through a more prestigious school, but at 17, that wasn't what I was interested in. And I did spread out my college experience. And I got degrees in both finance and political science, and also went through the honors college, which was just extra work at my college. So I had something like 72 transfer credits, so a little over like 2 years of college classes when I went to college. and still took 8 semesters, 4 full years to graduate. So I did slow things down a little bit, I guess you could say. And then right now I work in actuarial science, and I'm currently just trying to get through those exams relatively quickly so I can get fully credentialed as an actuary. So, what makes me different? I would just say it's the way my brain processes and absorbs information, and more specifically, the speed at which it does so. But I think the bigger difference might be how isolating my life experience and childhood was compared to everyone else. But I think the bigger difference is how isolating my childhood and life experience was as a result of those brain differences. In a way, I think it's like comparing a 5 foot male to a 6 foot male. The height difference is only a foot. Like the person that's 5 feet is 83% as tall as the person that's 6 feet. But their lived experiences related to height in our society are going to be very, very different. Yes, they'll get treated differently based on their height by many people, but not just that. It's like what sports can they play, especially at a higher level, how they fit into like seats, whether it's like cars, airplanes, having to reach up for everything, different maybe health concerns, different weights, like just everything's going to be vastly different, especially in our society. So I think intelligence is kind of similar to that, because I really feel like my differences are just with how quickly I'm able to learn, how well I'm able to remember, and how complex of ideas I can understand. Those three things, I think, make up most of general intelligence, or what we consider to be general intelligence. And then I do want to emphasize, like those abilities can differ depending on the topic. Like I have more ability in math than other topics, so they vary within individuals. So I will just say, when we talk about things coming naturally, I think that's a little bit of a myth, or at least a little bit misleading. Like, it's not like I could do the times tables the minute I was born. Like, that had to be learned somewhere. I think all information like has to be learned. When we're talking about things coming quickly, though, I think it comes down to being able to quickly recognize patterns in the information that's being given, and also being able to quickly associate one thing with another. So that way, once you learn about a given topic, you can go to another topic that's similar to it, and also pick up the concepts there quickly as well. That kind of gives the illusion of certain things being natural, I would say. So when we talk about things coming natural to someone, what we really mean is it just comes very quickly for them, either through associating it with something else, or just being able to quickly understand a brand new topic. And those are two slightly different skill sets, but nothing really comes naturally, I wouldn't say. It's just a little bit of an illusion. So my biggest advantages, I would say, seem to be with pattern recognition and memory. So that means in practice, I'm able to quickly recognize patterns in data or information. This allows me to learn new information at a quicker rate than other people. With pattern recognition, I'm also able to quickly adjust to new and evolving situations. I can make a lot of just looser connections between my different lived experiences. At least that's my best estimate on why my brain works differently and why I've been able to accomplish and do some of the things I've been able to do. So with numbers, I'm really able to just form quick memories and connections that have just stuck. And as such, that's given me quite strong mental math that's usually both quick and accurate. I may have a small advantage in being able to understand more complicated things, but I think a lot of the perceived advantage comes from being confident that I will eventually understand, not having anxiety, and learning quicker and making the connections and the associations quicker. And then additionally, more simple stuff is learned very quickly, meaning I just have more brain power to focus on the more complicated parts. And I'll use that to lead into another topic, which is keeping up mental stimulation and being challenged. It usually takes more for me to be mentally challenged and is often not something I can rely on from my external environment. It's just easy for me to autopilot through a lot of life. If I don't focus on trying to make conversations interesting, then I can go a while without having too much mental stimulation from that. So I guess for me right now, I get probably the most mental stimulation from playing games. I've been trying to learn euchre and actually get decent at it, but for a while that was poker. Doing puzzles, reading, and then studying for the actuarial exams that I'm taking. Having an active social life can also contribute, like figuring out how to best manage my existing friendships and connect with others. But it is easy to just autopilot through a lot. Sometimes I'll mitigate that by being in a conversation where I'll try to be more tuned into the other people and focus on their emotions and forget some of my own. I should really be doing that more often. But my point here is that the stimulation comes from me seeking it out, not from other people giving it to me by asking really thought-provoking questions or doing something else. Again, I feel like I can get by or even go beyond that in a lot of social settings just by autopiloting. And I'm not saying that in a good way at all. But for me, the lived experience is just so different. Like, just in America, we play middle and high school sports based off of what grade we're in. They're divided into grade levels. And skipping a grade because of test scores, cognitive ability, it meant I got to play high school sports at 13, for example. Like, that seems ludicrous to connect the two, but that's the way it is. That's the world I grew up in. So really, it's things like that about the world that make me feel like I don't control whether my intelligence matters. It does whether I like it or not. Early on, I wasn't learning the same things as my peers, and largely, like I said, just lived in my own world, which was just already a different one from theirs. From age 7 through 18, I was usually the youngest or close to the youngest in almost all of my classes. I can maybe only think of a couple exceptions to that, and that was all just with skipping a grade. So what that means is like all your friends can drive before you, just for example, or they're all teenagers before you. There's certain life experiences like that they get a little bit earlier than you, so you're just not quite in sync with them. At least that was how I felt around a lot of my friends in middle school and high school. And again, I never had to try that hard in school. I didn't have to study hard for a test. I never really felt amazing about an A, only just a little bit bad or disappointed in anything worse. And really, none of the things I'm actually proud of came from academics. And I've had people praising me for being smart my entire life and talking about how I have a bright future and all that, and people have a lot of respect for the position I'm in now, right? Just because I have a job and I'm living on my own and all that. And it's just like I don't deserve my life more than anyone else. I didn't have to work very hard to get here. And I'm used to all that, so none of it like bothers me. It's not like I have imposter syndrome as far as I'm aware. But just flatly being used to something like that is relatively uncommon. And then just in social circles, I feel like most of my friends would underestimate my intelligence. I'm just used to having more of it than anyone around me and feeling like I'm the smartest in the room. Now, of course, like wisdom or happiness or any of that is a totally different ball game. But in just terms of general intelligence and what comes out in cognitive tests, I more often than not probably the smartest in the room. So socially, for me, I would divide my life into different stages. The first was not fitting in, not being able to fit in, yet not really caring. And this was probably from the age of 1 or 2 up around age 8 or 9. The second one was not being able to fit in, but caring about fitting in, but being bad at it, of course. And this would have been from around 9 or 10 until the end of high school. Although I was on the right trajectory towards the end of high school, I made a lot of progress through each stage, of course. This is just the simplest way to break it down. And then college, I cared about fitting in and was actually able to fit in pretty well. Then after getting out of college, I sat back and realized I had a good number of trusted friends. And the skills I honed to make friends and fit in weren't going to go away, so I've kind of stopped caring about fitting in as much. Now my general goal is to have more people understand me in my actual life. There's always practicality to it though. I can work in many social environments and I feel like it's still best to conform to the norms and not stand out. I'll also briefly mention, to me, social skills, I feel like I had to learn a lot of them and I wasn't born with them. My ability to read others' emotions has always been good, I would say, and I've had some amount of creativity in social situations and can think outside the box, but just how to, the stuff that came quickly for others, I feel like I had to learn, but now that I've learned it, I think I'm in pretty good shape and have adjusted quite well, but it's not like a whole lot just feels supernatural. And then also, for one reason or another, I haven't had a lot of super close friends. Like, I wouldn't say I've ever had a best friend. And I'm okay with that. I've come to live with that. They used to bother me a little bit. It doesn't really bother me anymore. And maybe that will change. Maybe that will change someday. Maybe I will get a best friend. But I haven't really had one. So it's like I wouldn't expect. Like, there's probably some of my friends, if they get married someday, I'll be involved at their weddings. Certainly a lot of weddings I'll go to. But I don't expect to be the best man at anyone's wedding, if I had to guess. Although I could never rule that out. So I guess I should briefly touch on romance. I have a little bit of experience there. I had a couple of girlfriends, not a lot. I've never really fallen for anyone. And sometimes I do wonder how many people I'm compatible with, how many women. For a long time, I just wanted someone similar. But now I think someone that knows how to treat me well, understands me, and asks good questions would be a good partner. Now, how tall of an order is that? I'm not sure. And that I feel like that would work even if her life experiences were really quite different. Although, to me, dating someone at the same level or smarter than me would still be alluring to try someday. Yeah, I'm hopeful the right person might stop me from having those thoughts any longer. I'm still figuring things out as far as figuring out what I can be intentional about. You know, a lot of people, they just meet someone, everything kind of falls into their laps nicely together. That could happen to me at any moment, but if it doesn't happen, I want to be prepared otherwise, I guess. I do want to add, I guess one of the difficulties for me with finding like-minded people is that there aren't a ton of natural ways to do it. I'm not going to get into organic social circles with like-minded people unless I'm in like a really specific career or maybe went to a more prestigious college or something. It's not like I can find similar people reliably in something like a chess club or running club or something of the sort. So it just becomes hard to find a social circle where I would be like the average person in it. And from my observations, being the average person in a social circle can be quite beneficial, at least some of the time. I could join Mensa, I've contemplated it, but despite valuing intelligence pretty highly, I'm a little wary of joining a group where it seems like at least some tie it to their self-worth or are insecure about it and maybe make it a part of their personality. And plus, like, the public perception of the group is quite poor, but I still have to research it better to see whether that or another similar organization would be viable for me. I don't know. It might just be that I would rather get everywhere I want to socially without exploring something like that. So maybe I'm a little bit determined to kind of figure everything out on my own, so to speak. That's definitely something I guess I could reflect on. So I'll just close out with goals and ambition. I've always wanted to get close to my potential and not be an underachiever. I can't fully shake the feeling of owing the world at least a strong effort to do good and realize my potential. Yeah, I realize that's internal, and the logical side of me knows there's no obligation to do anything but coast. I think one tricky thing right now is there's not really a defined path to get to my entire potential that doesn't involve making my career most of my life or getting quite creative. Like if I was an average person, I think I could just work hard, get in a decent white collar job that a ton of other people have, and then work 40 hours a week and just feel a lot of success and fulfillment from the occasional promotion or salary boost throughout my career. For me, it would take a lot to feel successful just off the merits of my career, unless I switch to something that involves directly helping other people. And I may make that switch someday, but luckily I'm not yet burnt out of the corporate world, which at 22 would be pretty bad if I was. But I do think it's good to get on my feet while I am in pursuit of something better. And that pursuit of something better is something I hope to retain for a lifetime. So, thank you again for watching. I really do appreciate it. As always, comments are welcome. Feel free to email me anything if you want to connect. And like and subscribe if you want to see this project continue to grow. Thank you. Peace.